It is a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to stand before you to talk about this issue. I feel at home. Thank you all for that. I was greeted with warm faces and smiles, even though I know that this is a difficult topic to navigate. So I first had to give honor to God so he can speak through me, because this, I feel, is truly my gift that God has given me to give to others. So I appreciate you all for allowing me to do that. A little bit about today before I get started. I'm a walker. You'll see me over here, over there. It's fine. I don't think that I am a lecturer that's going to stand here and point. No, I want to have a conversation with you about this topic, about what's going on, not only here, but outside of here, okay? How we're feeling. And another thing that we'll get to is I'm going to check in with you about your feelings. Typically, we don't do that because our motto as black and brown people is, I'm fine, I'm good, we good. We don't need to talk about nothing. We do need to talk about something. And it's okay to not be okay. That's okay. So we're going to talk about your emotions as well. I felt that was very important. Okay? All of these wonderful people who got before me and spoke, thank you so much, because that has softened our heart a little bit, right? And we know the purpose of what today is, that this is something as leaders in this wonderful church that you are responsible for the folks who come in and out. I see the church as a hospital, right? And we think that everyone is healed that comes to the hospital. No, they're not. They come to the hospital because they're hurt in some way, right? And we have opportunity to help them move forward to healing, okay? So that's kind of where I'm going and what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to move this a little bit more. Sorry. Okay, I'm ready. We don't have a clicker. I apologize. So I'm going to be doing a lot of this so we can keep going. So we're going to talk about some learning and objectives for today. Go ahead. So the first thing, we want to talk about who are you in this, okay? So you can go ahead and click through. So you all got a name tag. And so, my name is, or hello, my name is, right? And so when we're defining ourselves or getting to know someone, on the surface, Stephanie did this wonderful job of introducing me, but you saw me and you were like, oh, okay, new person. Wonder what her name is. And I could have just said, hi, my name is April, or my name is April Autumn, and that's it. But you wouldn't know anything about me. And when people come to your church, that's what they just see the surface, right? And there are lots of other things that they could be thinking. You can click. I'm a Christian. Oh, yeah, you're in church. You're Christian. What else? Nice person. Oh, because they're smiling. They're so kind. But there are some things that you might not think about. Keep going. One more. Okay. Victim survivors. Possible perpetrator. Upstander, bystander. Right? What I know about these conversations is there's usually a couple of people in the audience that have experienced this. Whether they've come forward or they've been silent, they're still here. And I want to say that please take care of yourself if any of this is triggering for you, right? Also know that there may be potential or past perpetrators. Now, I understand that people don't like that word. I offer that we get comfortable in talking about that word and what it means, but it does not mean that there can't be healing from that, okay? Upstander, bystander, we're going to talk a lot about that, how you can make the difference in changing behavior here, okay? So in this conversation, I'm going to challenge you to think about those identities with folks within the facility, within the church. Go ahead. Or you're just confused right now. I don't know what's going on. It's okay. It's okay. Like, why are we talking about this? It's okay. I'm used to some resistance, and that's okay. So some things for us to consider. You can keep going. Safe space, brave space. So I want to make this conversation as comfortable and safe as possible. But safety sometimes is an illusion, right? We lock our doors. We make sure to live in a safe neighborhood. But you still can have somebody burglarize your home, right? So safety can be an illusion. I'm going to make this as safe as possible. But with that safety, I want you to understand that we don't move forward unless we step into a brave space. And that brave space is where you kind of confront your fears and consider talking, consider being uncomfortable. That's the only way that we can move forward. Whether you're a victim survivor, whether you're a past or potential perpetrator, whether you've intervened, whatever identity, it's going to take us stepping into some brave spaces, okay? The next one, listen. Okay, that's pretty basic, right? Give it, even if there's a little pushback, I want you to take like a 3-second and consider, right? I'm not asking you to always agree. Consider, okay? Learn, okay? Maybe learn something different that you hadn't before, or look at it from a different perspective. Take care of yourself. If this is just too much to bear, please take a moment for yourself. Step out, go to the restroom, get some of this wonderful food that the ministry has provided back here, cup of coffee. Please take care of yourself. All right, some learning objectives that we have. You will learn how to identify the root causes and implications of gender violence. Okay? Identify definitions and sexual violence to include sexual harassment. Identify, review, and discuss common myths and facts associated with sexual harassment. And identify and practice bystander intervention methods. That sounds pretty packed today. I think so. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So what I want you to do first, I want to start with this poem. And I'm going to read it out loud, and I encourage you to read it with me in your head. 1977, Portia Nelson, There's a Hole in My Sidewalk, The Romance of Self-Discovery. 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I still don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's habit. It's my fault. I know where I am. I get out immediately. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. 5, I walk down a different street. So, what I believe Portia is really talking about is the journey of life. From 0 to 18, we're socialized to believe lots of things. We're just like sponges that take it all in from lots of different places. You as an individual learn from your family, friends, your social networks, organization. You see how the church is in the middle there? See that? Your community, local culture, and then policies, procedures, and the bigger culture. You influence all of those things, but all of those things definitely have an influence on you. So, 0-18, you're socialized to believe all these things, right, wrong, up, down, all of these things. And at 18, you are positioned to launch onto your journey, your sidewalk. Now, those holes are issues, circumstances, situations that maybe you have no information about, misinformation about, okay? One of those holes, or some of those holes, we're going to talk about today. But I wanted to give you a framework to work in. How we believe about people, how we believe about ourselves, the culture that we live in, all impacts how we move, how we see people, and how we respond. Okay? It's okay. So, the feelings. I said I was going to check in with you about your feelings. I'm laying the groundwork if you hadn't known. So, you have a sheet, right? So, this sheet, while we're going through things, I want to help you understand what you may be feeling, right? Kind of pinpoint it. Where do you feel it in your body? And usually what we do when we feel, we do this. I'm going to invite you to kind of take a deep breath and relax, okay? Because when we do this, it's almost like a defense mechanism to fight, okay? All right. Oh, yay. So new ideas, beliefs, thought processes, these all can be challenging. Are you ready to go on a journey with me? I feel like I've set the stage so we can move forward. So I invite you to take a deep breath in and out. All right, let's begin. Oh, bless you. Bless you. All right, so how did we get here? So, umbrella term, gender violence. And even in this, you've heard me say gender violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual violence, all of these things, right? Well, gender violence is an umbrella term that we use to encompass a lot of things. As you see, sexual violation, date rape, sexual assault. When I'm talking about gender violence, that's the depth and breadth of all of those things. Okay? So, we're going to start here and come down here to sexual harassment. Okay? So, rape culture. Whew, I just went there. I went quick. So, rape culture, by definition, is a society or environment whose prevailing social attitudes have the effect of normalizing or trivializing gender violence, harassment, assault, abuse, neglect. Okay? All right. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what does rape culture look like. So before we do that, I want to ask kind of a weird question. What is a norm? Anybody know what a norm is? Anyone? Not a trick question, I promise.
The accepted way of doing a particular thing.
Awesome. Good job. Thank you for not being afraid. I appreciate you. You're right. A norm is behavior shapers, right? It's sanctioned behavior, right? Things, the normal way of doing things. Based in culture and tradition. Usually it's taken for granted, and it's more than a habit. For example, there is one thing that I see all of you did amazingly well that's a norm in our society. Wear clothes today. Right. I'm sure nobody got up this morning and said, gee, I wonder if I'm going to wear clothes today. No, you didn't do that. You said, wonder what I'm going to wear. I'm wearing these shoes, this sweater, all of that. That's a norm. That's just what we do in the society, right? It's sanctioned because if somebody goes outside without clothes on, more than likely they're going to get arrested, right? There was a norm that started, about 3 years ago. Y'all remember that one? Some people are still doing it. Mask, right. Quickly. And if you did not wear a mask, Lord Jesus, why are you having your mask on? Put that mask on. Right? Okay. All right. In the same way, there is culture that we set up in church that's acceptable or not acceptable. Okay? All right. So what could that look like still? All of these things apply. What could that look like? One that people don't like to talk about, I told you I talk about difficult things, is I'm just assuming that you want a hug. I'm assuming. And you were looking at me like, girl, don't hug me. Right. That's an assumption. But we're friendly in the church. We love on each other. Right? True. Churchgoer, been in the church since I can't remember. Forever. Right? But that's an assumption that we go on. Turn to your neighbor, give them a hug. Turn to your other neighbor, give them a hug. Ooh. Okay. Not even a handshake, a hug, full body, okay. That might be a little touchy. So when we're thinking about this, how do we set this up, right? Okay, all right. So there are 5 key norms in our society that keep violence going, okay? The first one is power over others. We live in a society, larger society, that it is normal for people to have power over others. Oh, I see people like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Give me an example. Somebody. Say again? Managers, okay. So there's a boss and worker bees. All right. What else? Oh, yes, teacher, student. Yes. Parent, child. Okay. Anything else? Ooh, law enforcement. Ooh, and then hold on. Let me go on over here. That was good. Let me go on over here, though. Husband, wife. Look, I love it. He was like, it was not me. It was not me. Okay, all right. Husband and wife. Okay. Oh, we're going to come back to that one because that's good. Yes, ma'am. Male, female. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, is power good or bad? Good job. It's neither. It's how you use it, how you wield your power. So, there we go. All right, so that's the first one. Violence is acceptable and everywhere. Yes, no, maybe? Some people say no. Some people say yes. I'll give you an example. I live in Houston. I drive. Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States. It's violent on them streets. Those people carry guns and can, yes. And they have the gun rack in their trucks. And people wave their gun at you if you're not doing something right on the freeway. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's serious, right? Say again? That is very serious. What about the violence that we consume with our eye gates and our ear gates? Now, I have twins that are 20, about to be 21, and sometimes I ride in the car with them and listen to the music that they listen to. It's violent. It is. It is. I like to watch Law and Order, Bones. There are lots of violent shows that I just watch, and somebody's brains on the cement. I'm like, wow, that's violence. It normalizes violence, that someone's life can be gone in a second. Oh, they're dead. Oh, okay. That's what I mean about violence. There's sanctioned violence that we don't talk about. We have a military. They go fight in wars. That's sanctioned violence. How many of us watch sports? Football, basketball, all of those things. Yeah. Go San Francisco. Okay. Anyway, yes. That's violence. Hockey, oh my gosh. Whoo. I like hockey too. Sorry. Violent. WWE, anybody? Okay. Yes, violence. So when we talk about violence being acceptable and everywhere, that's what I mean. So much so that we're like, no, there's no violence. Oh, wait. That is kind of violent. Okay? All right. These two go together. Limited notions of masculinity and limited notions of femininity. The first one, limited notions of masculinity, this thought that, boys will be boys. What does that mean? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Means males will say or do something they have no business doing.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to add? Adding to that, it puts men in a box of particular behaviors. And if they do not subscribe to those behaviors, violence can happen to them. Yeah. We're going to go deeper into that today, just to let y'all know. Little preview. Okay. Limited notions of femininity, the oppression and objectification of women. This thought that women and girls are the property of who? Men. Yes. Oh, that felt uncomfortable. Oh, you better say it. Yes. So when I say that, I have to back it up. So typically when a young woman gets married, who gives her away? Her father. The exchanging from one man to the other. Just saying, it's part of our tradition. Okay? All right. Last one, privacy and silence. We don't talk about these issues. And I commend Wake Chapel Church for doing this. Because when we typically do, it's like, girl, did you hear? Oh, hey, how you doing? And that's it. Nobody really talks. It's whispers. And breaking the silence is what changes behavior. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. How y'all feeling? Check in. Okay. All right. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. All right. So why talk about these things? I mean, it's good to know, I guess. Well, these norms create a culture where gender violence is acceptable and that it continues to happen. Right? The other thing, we need to understand rape culture within church culture and kind of tease out the behaviors so we can remove some of those things so everybody can feel safe. right? We were talking about earlier the illusion of safety, right? If we truly want to create safety, we have to look at the bigger picture, right? We also want to support, if we don't talk about rape culture, it continues to support ongoing behaviors that make gender violence happen to begin with. And so for the reduction and the elimination of gender violence, rape culture, we must understand and challenge the norms to change the behavior. So that's why we need to have this conversation. So while we're continuing to talk, I want you to think about for a minute, how is negative behavior around gender violence sanctioned and rewarded in the community? And then, how can you as members of this church community create a new shared norm within our group that will shift expectations and create a safer community for all? All right? We'll come back to that, but it's something I want you to be thinking about. All right. All right. Does it feel like sometimes it's masculinity versus femininity? Yeah. Yeah. Even when I'm having these conversations, someone, and this was within a church. It was an older church. It was kind of cute though. I had to go to my mama and ask this question. They were like, "Well, you're kind of mannish in your mouth." I was like, "Mama, what that mean?" Implying that I, as a female, shouldn't be talking about these issues. I should be dainty and quiet, sipping my little tea. No, this is, I feel, the gift that God has given me to have these strong conversations. So within all of us, there's a spectrum of masculinity and femininity. It's where you fall on the spectrum, okay? Now, that makes people uncomfortable. It's true, though. It's true. I have research for folks who don't believe that, but it's true. So, again, all of that is determined sometimes how safe you feel letting parts of your masculinity or femininity out in culture by where you grow up, what your parents tell you, how your communities educate you, how they make you feel safe or not safe, okay? So, limited notions. There's a couple. Gender roles, a set of societal norms dictating the type of behaviors which are generally considered acceptable, appropriate, or desirable for people based on their actual or perceived gender. Okay? That's one. Again, mannish mouth. That was not cool for me as a female to be talking like this. So, there's femininity, a set of attributes, behaviors, or roles generally associated with girls and women. Masculinity, kind of the same, a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles generally associated with boys and men. Okay? So, what I would like for us to do, where's my friend? Hey, there you are. Come on up. You, sir. I'm sorry. You, sir. I'm sorry. So we're about to get into groups and talk about some things. So I want us to consider this activity, act like a man or act like a woman. Okay? Yes, we're going to talk about this, child. So.
Okay, Rick. Good morning, everyone. As you picked up your agenda, you had different colors, and we want to break those up into the 7 groups. We want yellow in this section. So it's on your agenda. It should be the top left corner. So did everyone get agenda? If you didn't get agenda, go with the person beside you. Okay? We want yellow here, green here, red in this section, blue in this section. We want purple in that corner, And there's a combination of colors. If you're not in one of those groups, combination of colors is green and red in that corner and blue and purple in the middle. So please, as fast as you can, get to your, again, yellow, green, red, and blue. And purple, the first basketball goal on your left, okay, in the middle. The green and red in the middle, and the blue. You see, yes, you see where the stage is.
You didn't say this color.
Yes, bleachers. Again, the purple in those bleachers, green and red in the middle bleachers. Yes. Hey, you gonna switch with color with someone? So you won't have to walk all the way over there. Yes, just stay here. Green. Green is here. Green here. So everyone here is red, correct? Everyone's here is blue, right? Blue. No, purple. The bleachers. No, okay. Somebody said purple. Green. Oh, what I saw? I swear I thought I saw. Okay. Okay. Blue. Everybody. Red. Everyone. Green.
Red.
Yellow. Okay, you going back here with me. What? I give you.
Raise your hand if you need a booklet. Okay. It's okay. No. I'll get it for you if you need it. Oh, okay. I was like, no, you don't have to go get it. Oh. Raise your hand high. This lovely gentleman is going to give you one. Ha ha! Okay. I'm feeling bad because I have some people standing. Okay. I'm just gonna have to get through my field. Oh.
He said he works in a corporate division where they stand and people have more energy. So I don't want energy.
Okay. So I would like for us to turn to the sheet that looks like this. Okay? So, this is the act like a lady or act like a man box. And I'm going to assign each group either lady or man. And so, I want you to think about in society, right? There are certain characteristics, behaviors, thought processes, things that people do when they're told to act like a lady. You see my quotes? Act like a lady or act like a man. It's not in there. The questions are, I'm sorry. You have these questions? Hold on. That. No questions? Nope. It should be like the second page. If not, it's okay. If not, it's okay. So we're going to write on one of those blank sheets behind. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Office Max did me dirty again. So, I'm going to leave this up, though. And I want you to think about the behaviors, thought processes when you're told to act like a lady or act like a man. And I'm going to assign your group either a lady or man. Make sense? And I'm going to put some questions up here. So, y'all act like a lady. act like a lady, act like a man, act like a man, lady, man. Okay? So the questions are there, and I would like for you all to have a conversation with each other. Talk about it. Okay? I'm going to give you about 7 minutes. Ready? Go. Some lovely, lively conversation. Yes, that is great. That is great. Okay, so we have some spokespersons here. So act like a lady, right? This is one of my Act Like a Lady groups. Awesome. So what are some thoughts that come to mind? Who's the speaker? You're like, not me. What are some thoughts that come to mind when someone says, act like a lady?
Okay. All right, thoughts that come to mind. And for the record, I'm not a lady. So thoughts that come to mind, lady sits up straight, it's appropriate by the dress code,
What's that? What's the dress code?
prim and proper. That's what I was
Okay.
told.
Okay.
All right, all right. The volume of your speech,
So what does that mean?
not loud and boisterous.
Okay, it's quiet. and
Quiet.
unassuming.
Not a potty mouth.
Not a potty mouth, so
That's
no
right.
vulgar language.
That's right.
Okay.
And the topics of your conversation are ladylike.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Give him my hand. Thank you so much. Okay. What does that person look like?
Not like me. Okay. As far as what does a lady look like? She is dressed appropriately, which is modest. All right.
Can you go a little bit further into depth of what modest is?
The discussion we had, one of the words that came out was covered. What was the other one? Things not too tight, clothing not too tight. Elegant was another word
Elegant.
that came out.
I love it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I think that was all we discussed on what this person looked like.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Assertive, but not aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Give him a hand, please. Thank you so much. Lady. Y'all, which one? I'm sorry. Let me go on over here. Ladies. We're ladies. That's what she said with authority. We are ladies. All right. So, what characteristics do they possess?
Quietness, polite.
Well, oh Lord, well.
Aggressive. Really,
Okay.
and demanding.
That a lady?
I'm looking for more. Yes, demanding.
Okay.
Also confident.
Okay.
Very confident.
So let me ask a question because I'm just going to say, because it sounds like you had some very strong ladies over here, which is fine. Listen, I'm talking about societal when someone says lady. Uh-huh. Go ahead.
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Loyal.
Uh-huh.
Content.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love it. He's conferring with another. This is
I'll
wonderful.
leave that to Tyler Perry.
This is great.
Oh, the angry black woman.
Say again?
That came from, Lee said an angry black woman. But it's
Oh,
culture. So at some point it's it's
So
environmental.
y'all hopping forward.
At some point it's
Y'all hopping
environmental.
forward. I'm gonna put a pin in y'all because y'all just over here showing out and stuff, being smart and stuff. No, I'm playing. That's wonderful. Okay, so since y'all did extra credit over here, what behaviors does this person exhibit? Now I want you to think about societal. Like if someone on TV this is lady such and such. What were the behaviors that would be exhibited? Oop. Say again?
Demure.
What else?
Prim.
Prim, okay. Proper.
Proper.
Yeah. Proud.
Proud. Dainty. Non-confrontational.
Non-confrontational. Okay, we're coming back to this black woman thing. I'm Thank you. Give them a hand, please. All right. Act like a man. Let's act like a man. Oh, you ready? Look, you was right here. Let me get you to there you go.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Again, we were Act Like a Man.
And the first one, what thoughts come to mind?
That's our short list, but we'll go with that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
There was a lot of effort on 4, but as far as number 1, that's being a man. Strong, protector, calm. We also had loud there as well.
Okay.
But like I said, number 4, when we circle back to that, was a much longer list.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you since you are eager. I'm coming back to you. Give him a hand and ready to do 2 questions, not just 1. All right. What does that person look like? Who's it? Oh. There's some contention over there. But number 2. Number 2. What does that person look like?
Masculine, strong, wear pants, facial hair, muscular. We're all over 50, so in our age, you didn't wear pink.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was our short list. Come back with us, number 4.
Okay, so y'all gonna duke it out over number 4. Okay, all right, we can do that. All right, give them a hand, please. Good job. All right. Okay, act like a man. What behaviors does this person exhibit?
So in terms of behaviors,
I'm sorry.
Oh.
What characteristics do they possess? I'm sorry, I promised.
characteristics, protective, they are a provider, they may be less likely to express emotion, competitive, brave, intelligent, more visual. More visual. They respond to visual stimuli.
Thank you so much.
Strong. They have swagger.
And have swagger. Y'all missed that. Y'all was like, swagger. I knew somebody would appreciate that. Y'all give them a hand. Good job. All right, so my speakers up here for the last question. Come on. My speakers, come on. Yeah. Okay. What behaviors does this person exhibit? One at a time now.
Okay. Boastful.
Take charge,
Arrogant.
strategic,
Private.
impatient,
Non-conversational with other men.
bossy,
Let things go.
know-it-all,
Make it up quick.
fixer,
Achieve common goals.
supporter,
They get the job done.
aggressive,
They take charge.
analytical,
They don't follow directions or instructions.
over,
Give them a hand. That was great. That was great. All right, you all can have a seat. That was amazing. So let's break some of that down. I hope you guys had a good time talking about that one. This one, or this one?
Either one.
Okay.
The batteries were getting weak. That's the one she had on.
Okay. Awesome.
It doesn't matter.
Ooh, actually, I'm still going to need it. I'm still going to need it. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you all being great sports and doing that activity. Give yourselves a hand. That was great. That was great. So, in thinking about that, I want to go back to the box. So there's nothing wrong with any of those things, right? There's nothing wrong with acting like a man and acting like a woman or a lady. I'm going to come back to the black woman in a minute, though. No, that was great. That was right on. However, there's certain things that will keep you in the box. For example, if you're a man, and I'm talking nobody in here, I'm talking about society, right? If you are a man, and one of the things in the box is to be a player, right? Right? Have lots of women. Whoop! Okay. He said pretty Ricky. But you are married. How does that work? It does not. It does not. It does not. Right? What if you are a woman, right? And women are to sit proper and speak softly, right? But if you're making your bread and you got to be in the boardroom and doing things, what are people going to say about you? You a beep, right? That's one of the first things. You a what? What you doing? You can't be acting like that. That's a contradiction. So there are things in the box that are contradictory, right? And if you step outside of the box, there are things that are said to you that make you get back in. You a beep, get back in the box. Oh, so I need to be smaller. If you ever gonna get married, you need to tone that down. Oh, well, okay, but I'm making my cash over here, like, okay, well, I don't know how that's gonna work. Then sometimes, to get you back in the box, violence can happen to you, right? So if you're a man, right, and you wear a pink shirt, ooh, you trying to act like a woman? Men don't wear pink. You're not gonna wear that cute pink shirt that looks real good on you no more, right? Or, this is one that I hear quite a bit. Men can't be sexually assaulted. What are you talking about? It is not true at all. And violence can happen to put you back in the box. Oh, let me show you what sexual violence is. Yes, that happens to put you back in the box. That's why I wanted to talk about that a little bit, okay? To bring it home a little bit further, I want us to watch this video, and I'm wondering if I just click, will it play? No. Nope. You might have to, use the track button to push the play. Yay!
So I grew up in New York City, between Harlem and the Bronx. Growing up as a boy, we was taught that men had to be tough, had to be strong, had to be courageous, dominating, no pain, no emotions, with the exception of anger and definitely no fear. That men are in charge, which means women are not. That men lead, and you should just follow and just do what we say. That men are superior, women are inferior. That men are strong, women are weak. That women are of less value, property of men, and objects, particularly sexual objects. I've later come to know that to be the collective socialization of men, better known as the man box. See, this man box has in it all the ingredients of how we define what it means to be a man. Now, I also want to say, without a doubt, there are some wonderful, wonderful, absolute.
I didn't do that. The internet may have glitched. I'm sorry. It was just getting good. Hold on just a second. Okay. If you go to YouTube, opening of the window, it's a video slide. I have to go down. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, this is the 27th. So, play. Yes.
So I grew up in New York City, between Harlem and the Bronx. Growing up as a boy, we was taught that men had to be tough, had to be strong, had to be courageous, dominating, no pain, no emotions, with the exception of anger and definitely no fear. That men are in charge, which means women are not. That men lead, and you should just follow and just do what we say. That men are superior, women are inferior. That men are strong, women are weak. That women are of less value, property of men, and objects, particularly sexual objects. I've later come to know that to be the collective socialization of men, better known as the man box. See, this man box has in it all the ingredients of how we define what it means to be a man. Now, I also want to say, without a doubt, there are some wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful things about being a man. Well, at the same time, there's some stuff that's just straight up twisted. And we really need to begin to challenge, look at it, and really get in the process of deconstructing, redefining what we come to know as manhood. This is my two at home, Kendall and Jade. They're 11 and 12. Kendall's 15 months older than Jade. There's a period of time, when my wife, her name is Tammy, and we just got real busy and whip, bit, bam, boom, Kendall and Jade. All right. And when they were about 5 and 6, 4 and 5, Jade could come to me. It didn't matter, come to me crying, It didn't matter what she was crying about. She can get on my knee, she can snot my sleeve up, just cry it out. Daddy got you, that's all that's important. Now Kendall, on the other hand, and like I said, he's only 15 months older than her, he come to me crying. It's like as soon as I would hear him crying, a clock would go off. I would give the boy probably about 30 seconds, which means by the time he got to me, I was already saying things like, why you crying? Hold your head up, look at me, explain to me what's wrong, tell me what's wrong, I can't understand you while you're crying. And out of my own frustration of my role and responsibility of building him up as a man to fit into these guidelines and these structures that are defining this man box, I would find myself saying things like, just go in your room. Just go on in your room, sit down, get yourself together, and come back and talk to me when you could talk to me like a what? A man. Like a man. And he's 5 years old. And as I grow in life, I would say to myself, my God, what's wrong with me? What am I doing? Why would I do this? And I think back to my father. There was a time in my life where we had a very troubled experience in our family. My brother Henry, he died tragically when we was teenagers. We lived in New York City, as I said, we lived in the Bronx at the time. And the burial was a place called Long Island. It was about 2 hours outside of the city. And as we were preparing to come back from the burial, you know, the cars stopped at the bathroom, you know, to let folks take care of themselves before the long ride back to the city. And the limousine empties out. My mother, my sister, my auntie, they all get out, but my father and I stayed in the limousine. And no sooner than the women got out, he burst out crying. He didn't want to cry in front of me, but he knew he wasn't going to make it back to the city. It was better me than to allow himself to express these feelings and emotions in front of the women. And this is a man who 10 minutes ago had just put his teenage son in the ground. Something I just can't even imagine. The thing that sticks with me the most is that he was apologizing to me for crying in front of me. And at the same time, he was also giving me props, lifting me up for not crying. You know, I come to also look at this as this fear that we have as men, this fear that just have us paralyzed, holding us hostage to this man box. I can remember speaking to a 12-year-old boy, a football player, and I asked him, I said, how would you feel if in front of all the players, your coach told you you were playing like a girl? Now, I expected him to say something like, I'll be sad, I'll be mad, I'll be angry, or something like that. No, the boy said to me, it would destroy me. And I said to myself, God, if it would destroy him to be called a girl, what are we then teaching him about girls? It took me back to a time when I was about 12 years old. I grew up in tenement buildings, you know, in the inner city, and at this time we're living in the Bronx. And in the building next to where I lived, there was a guy named Johnny. He was about 16 years old, and we were all about 12 years old, younger guys, and he was hanging out with all us younger guys. And this guy, he was up to a lot of no good. He was the kind of kid where parents would have to wonder, what is this 16-year-old boy doing with these 12-year-old boys? And he did spend a lot of time up to no good. He was a troubled kid. You know, his mother had died from a heroin overdose. He was being raised by his grandmother. His father wasn't on the set. His grandmother had 2 jobs. He was home alone a lot. But I gotta tell you, we young guys, we looked up to this dude, man. He was cool. He was fine. That's what his sister said. He was fine, right? He was having sex. You know, we all looked up to him. So one day I'm out in front of the house doing something, just playing around, doing something, I don't know what. He looks out his window, he calls me upstairs. He said, hey, Amp, they called me Anthony growing up as a kid. Hey, Anthony, come on upstairs. Johnny called, you go. So I run right upstairs. As he opens the door, he says to me, do you want some? Now, I immediately knew what he meant, because for me growing up at that time and our relationship with this man box, do you want some meant one or two things, sex or drugs. And we weren't doing drugs. Now, my box, my card, my man box card was immediately in jeopardy. 2 things. One, I never had sex. We don't talk about that as men. You only tell your dearest, closest friends sworn to secrecy for life the first time you had sex. For everybody else, we go around like we've been having sex since we was 2. There ain't no first time. The other thing I couldn't tell them is that I didn't want any. You know, that's even worse. We're supposed to always be on the prowl. Women are objects, especially sexual objects. So anyway, I couldn't tell him any of that. So like my mother would say, make a long story short, I just simply said to Johnny, yes. He told me go in his room. I go in his room, on his bed is a girl from the neighborhood named Sheila. She's 16 years old, she's nude. She is what I know today to be mentally ill, higher functioning at times than others. We had a whole choice worth, you know, inappropriate names for her. Anyway, Johnny had just gotten through having sex with her. Well, he actually raped her, but he would say he had sex with her because while Sheila never said no, she also never said yes. So he was offering me the opportunity to do the same. So when I go in the room, I close the door. Folks, I'm petrified. I stand with my back to the door so Johnny can't bust in the room and see that I'm not doing anything. And I stand there long enough that I could have actually done something. So now I'm no longer trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get out of this room. So in my 12 years of wisdom, I zip my pants down, I walk out into the living room, and lo and behold to me, while I was in the room with Sheila, Johnny was back at the window calling guys up. So now it's a living room full of guys, like, you know, like the waiting room in the doctor's office. And they asked me, how was it? And I say to them, it was good. And I zip my pants up in front of them, and I head for the door. Now, I say this all with remorse, and I was feeling a tremendous amount of remorse at that time, but I was conflicting. Because while I was feeling remorse, I was excited, because I didn't get caught, but I knew I felt bad about what was happening. This fear getting outside the man box totally enveloped me. It was way more important to me about me and my man box card than about Sheila and what was happening to her. See, collectively, we as men are taught to have less value in women, to view them as property and the objects of men. We see that as an equation that equals violence against women. We as men, good men, the large majority of men, we operate on the foundation of this whole collective socialization. We kind of see ourselves separate, but we're very much a part of it. You see, we have to come to understand that less value, property, and objectification is the foundation, and the violence can't happen without it. So we're very much a part of the solution as well as the problem. The Centers for Disease Control says that men's violence against women is at epidemic proportions. It's the #1 health concern for women in this country and abroad. So quickly, I'd like to just say, you know, this is my love of my life, my daughter Jade. The world I envision for her. How do I want men to be acting and behaving? I need you on board. I need you with me. I need you working with me and me working with you on how we raise our sons and teach them to be men. That it's okay to not be dominating. That it's okay to have feelings and emotions. That it's okay to promote equality. That it's okay to have women who are just friends and that's it. That it's okay to be whole. That my liberation as a man is tied to your liberation as a woman. I remember asking a 9-year-old boy, what would life be like for you if you didn't have to adhere to this man box? He said to me, I would be free. Thank you, folks.
Okay. How we feeling? Whew, let's take a breath. That was a lot of information. So let me tell you a little about Tony Porter. Tony Porter is a colleague of mine who lives here in North Carolina now. He's in Charlotte. So he's another wonderful resource for men and men's engagement. He has a group called A Call to Men. So that was him. And one of the tech people said that he just recorded him at NC State a week ago? Oh, 5 years ago. Okay, so he's still very active in this community. So, yeah. So I'd like to play that video and look at some of the things and think about what stood out for you. What stood out?
How in all cultures, how men teach their sons very young, it's okay for your sister to cry, but as a boy, you can't cry.
Yeah, at a very early age. And let me be clear, it's not just men that teach that. Women do too. Yeah, women do too. But thank you for that, yes.
What stood out to me is that he was having conflicting feelings, even as a 12-year-old, but still continued with what was expected of him instead of breaking out of the man box.
Yeah, that's a huge one, considering safety, right? We started with safety and making environments safe. And that's one of the conversations that I encourage men to have with other men. First of all, talking with men, as Tony said. We don't do that a lot, right? Men don't talk about stuff like this. But to actually talk about what safety can look like and not be judged for what you're saying, that's huge. Stephanie, you were about to say something. Oh.
I think the thing that stood out to me was when he did get out of the box, and he acknowledged and want to acknowledge women, equally, and you have rights and responsibilities. You can be friends, and there's nothing sexual about it, or it's just the part that you respect women as well as you respect yourself.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really huge. Coming.
What stood out to me was not just what he said, but how he delivered authentically, vulnerable. His vulnerability was so transparent, and I think his delivery was awesome in an audience of women in front of him.
Yeah, that was huge, to be that vulnerable in front of all of the women. That was, yeah.
I think one of the things is because he's from the North, and I'm just being from the North and from the knowing about people in New York and the Bronx, and just coming saying like it has nothing to do with where you were raised, or but one of the notable things, I think, when he was talking about when his brother passed away, and his father waited until all the women got out the car before he started crying, and then he apologized to his son. And then growing up, I've seen that a lot, where the men in my family or men around, you didn't really see them crying and showing those types of emotions because it was seen as being soft, or so they hide a lot of the emotions inside, and you never really get to understand how they're really feeling.
Yeah. Again, that socialization. If you are crying, if you are showing emotion, you are acting like a girl. But everybody has emotions. Everybody has feelings.
The thing that stood out to me was the interaction he had with his young son, and how the different way he was attempting to raise his son. Just visualizing and seeing it on the screen, the ridiculous expectation you have of a 5-year-old to act like a man. And certainly I've been guilty of raising my sons different than my daughters and all of that. But to see it on screen and to see, really, you expect a 5-year-old to act like a 20-year-old? Ridiculous.
What stood out to me was how the rape scene, how the gentleman was calling the other guys to come up, and how boys are socially trained to act and to do and to perform in certain ways. And so I think it just brought me back to coming from the city, and you find that same mindset. And at that age, you don't know where it comes from. It's just there. And so how that is perpetuated, and we grow up from boys to be men, and from men, it's just a perpetual thing. So that was shocking. Yeah, shocking.
And the question I would say is, in that moment, thinking about how do we stop that? Where does it stop?
What stood out to me was when the interaction with the football player. He said, how would you feel? He said, it would destroy me if I was acting like a girl. Destroy. That's like deep rooted. Like, what view of a girl did your parents raise you? That just hurts. That really hurts.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Last one. Oh, last two.
I grew up in Bull City in Durham. And that scene that he talked about is what they used to call running a train. Mm-hmm. And I think about that happened to some girls that I knew from my high school. And as I think back over their lives and how horrible it was, and it became like a rite of passage for those guys who were involved in it, and that's just very disturbing.
Thank you for that. And I want to mention, I work with, Tony would be seen in that situation, even though he didn't do anything, as a perpetrator. Let's just call that what it is. I also work with youth and young adults who have been made to do this behavior, and helping them to understand that they are victims in that. That's hard. I was working with, and I haven't forgotten about you. I was working with a young man who was jumped in a gang by his dad at 12. And part of that was to have sex with a 25-year-old woman. And he did not want to. Again, the socialization of what we should be doing as women, as men, right? That's, whew. And that victimization has had a huge impact on that young man's life. And being conflicted with being accepted by his father, but internally knowing he did not want to do that behavior.
What stood out to me was the silence. There was no advocate, no voice for that young lady in that room amongst all the young men that were in there. So that tells me there was a socialization that said to be silent and not to being socialized, not to be protective of women.
Thank you. And you know, the going thing in our community is people in the African diaspora, snitches get stitches. Safety. Safety is huge in this. It's huge. I wanted to, I know that was really directed towards men, but please hear me clearly that women can be perpetrators as well. Women can perpetrate sexual violence. It doesn't happen as frequently. Well, let me back up. Our numbers don't show that it happens as frequently. Why do you think? Not reported, so men are strong. What do you mean? She had sex. What you complaining about? She gave you some, man. That's a win. The socialization. So we don't really have accurate numbers about that. Okay? Oh, that was a lot. All right, so we're going to take a break. All right? 5-10 minutes. Okay, so be back. Let's do 10. Let's do 10:49. Okay? All right. Yeah, wow. Uh-huh. This is like to point that out. So, sodomy does not count. No. You're sexually assaulted then. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. Okay. But is that clear? That's a better, okay. All right. Interesting the things we find out, right? All right. So I want to talk a little bit about consent. So consent is present when all partners have agreed to a sexual activity without the presence of force, fraud, lies, or coercion. Force, fraud, lies, or coercion. Force, fraud, lies, or coercion. You might be saying, why does she keep saying that? Well, again, I talk to a lot of youth and young adults, and it's usually some of those. Force, fraud, lies, or coercion. Right? Okay, I'll leave it there. To give fully informed consent, you must have all the information, the power to make a choice, the power to say no, and the power to change your mind. Now, I'm going to age myself. I'm in my 50s. I don't recall any of that when I was growing up. All the information, what is that? Well, who is this person? What do they do? Are they healthy? Have they been tested? Are you in a relationship? Are you not? All the do you have someone else that you're engaging in sexual behavior with? All of the information. Okay. The power to make a choice. Are you being coerced? Are you being, come on, you know you want to do this. Come on now. Okay, if we're not going to do it, then I just might as well break up with you and be with somebody else. Do you have the power to make a choice? Okay, think in your teen mind. Your young adult. Do you think they feel like they have a power? Well, I guess. I don't know. The power to say no. You see power. Again, maybe there's some intimidation. And the power to change your mind. Maybe they started. Maybe it's getting a little hot and heavy, and then they change their mind. Like, no, okay, I changed my mind. Is that power there to actually change? Okay. So there's a spectrum here at the bottom that goes from mutually consenting touch to sexual assault. And it starts, everybody's good. Then there's some unfair pressure. Then some coercion. Then some aggression. And then sexual assault. That's how it leads up. Okay. Consent is not. Cooperation? I guess. All right. That's not consent. Compliance, again, I guess it's my duty. I guess I'll comply. Or coercion. It's none of those. All right. Questions, concerns, prayer requests? Okay. All right. Uh-oh. That way. So, sexual harassment, and this is, I told you we were going from here to here. So, sexual harassment, unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature. Okay? All right. So, one of the first ones is quid pro quo, which literally means I'll do this for you if you do that for me. Okay? That's what it means. The other one is creating a hostile environment. Now, you might say, how? By making jokes, by commenting on someone's body or what you might want to do with them, just making it uncomfortable to be around. Okay? So, I wanted to be really specific in some of these things, and I believe in your packet they're all listed. Unwanted sexual advances, invitations or comments, asking people out on dates after they've told you no, continuing to do it over and over and over and over and over again. Visual conduct such as derogatory and or sexual-oriented posters, photographs, cartoons, drawings, screensavers, or gestures. Okay? Physical conduct such as assault, unwanted touching, blocking normal movement, or interfering with work. Okay? Threats or demands to submit to sexual requests as a condition of continued employment or to avoid some other loss, and offers of employment benefits in return for sexual favors. Then retaliation for having reported or threatened report sexual harassment. Questions? Okay. So, I've said some of these things, but includes inappropriate touching, fondling, use of pornography, sexual suggestive activity, nakedness, sexual assault. When sexual abuse occurs in a place of worship, it's often confusing for survivors because they were most likely exploited by a person they looked up to and or trusted. So probably someone who has more power than they do. So I'm going back to my analogy to the church being a hospital in the community, right? If someone comes into the church and is vulnerable, hurting, lost, remember the poem earlier? Lost, helpless, right? They're looking for help, support, understanding. And at that point, it might be really easy for someone to manipulate them. Okay? Whew. So I want you to kind of turn to your neighbor. We don't have to break out in any groups right now. But I want you to think about and maybe chat about for a minute, like some examples of sexual harassment within the workplace, the church, or individual ministries that you, or what could happen. Remember, we've been talking about this power dynamic. I want you to think about it a little bit and think about the what ifs. Okay? So I'm going to give you a minute to just turn to your neighbor and talk about some of the things that we talked about real quick. I know I heard my name.
When you're in a position of power, when you're in a position of power, consent is no defense.
Say one more time. Someone has a wonderful question, and I want to talk a little bit about this question. I'm sorry. I'm just used to just talking. I apologize. Someone has a wonderful question, and I want to talk a little bit about it. You want to ask it? So, the question was, what about people who cannot freely give consent? For example, what is the age of consent in North Carolina? It depends, but we're going to range it from 16 to 18, okay? We're going to range it. We're going to put a range there, all right? What about people who cannot consent because of age? There are laws against that, right? What about people who are incarcerated? Okay? On a job.
Thank you. Also, what happens if you have someone who's 18 but their mental capacity is 6?
Come on.
Or 8?
Come on now. You're right. Yeah. So these are things that we need to consider, right? In consent. Are these things we normally talk about, though?
They look okay.
I hear that a lot. Well, they looked like they was of age. Did we ask? Did we? No, we did not. Okay? So what were some of the conversations? We're going to play this video in a minute. But what were some of that was a great question. Anything else that came up in these conversations? Oh, you pointed her. Her. Who, do you want to share? Look, do you want to share for her? Ah, there you go. Would you like to share? If you don't want to share, you don't have to share. You're about to get the mic. Look. Okay. There's someone behind us.
So in our conversation, we were talking about how the church is almost a perfect environment for a perpetrator. Because if you're hurting and you're broken, you're coming to where you feel like, oh, these people are being so nice to me, or they're being, genuine in their attention to me, when it could easily go in a different direction and become inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's uncomfortable to think. Yeah.
In our conversation, we were speaking of, I might come up and say, oh, you look nice today. I said, that could go that way. But she said, yeah, if your eyes is going all over the place. So your eyes speaks too.
Oh, yeah. It's how you say what you say. Like, you look nice today, or you look nice today. That's different. That's real different. And how often are we saying it? Right? How often? And what are you doing when you say you look? Are you stroking that person on the back? And we're looking at me crazy, but these things happen all the time.
Yeah, just real quick. So I'm an HR professional. One of the things I see is like when you look at the workplace, usually there are, rules, regulations, policies. However, in the church environment, there's basically nothing. And some of the same things, that would happen in church would be a major issue in the workplace. But that's where we get to the education, like this training today, to help people understand. Because if you easily took, the concept of, would I do this at work? Would this be acceptable at work? Mm-hmm. And take that to the church. Would this be acceptable here, or should it be?
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Even the things, like I started out with the church hug. We talked about that. We have dubbed it the church hug, right? Everybody turn to your neighbor, give you a hug. Okay, so that could be, I know some churches have gone to the fist bump or asking. Really?
I finally remembered.
Okay. Yay! That's okay. Yay!
Give me a round of applause.
Yes.
I finally remembered. And I was sharing with them that I like the way Pastor Dean she does it all the time, but she'll say, I remember one time she said, the Spirit was saying, talk to somebody about why you're thankful that God made you the father of this child or the daughter or whatever. And she said, go to someone, but only go if you feel comfortable, if that person feel comfortable. I like the disclaimer that you don't feel obligated. She makes it clear that if the Spirit is leading you to talk to them, and that happened with me with a young lady that particular day. That lady was a visitor to our church, but it turned out to be such a blessing. But I asked her, even though she had walked toward me, she was a visitor, I said, are you comfortable talking to me and taking your hand or whatever and praying? And I just appreciate Pastor having that insight.
Yes. That is wonderful. One more, I'm sorry. One more.
We were saying, who in the church, who do you report it to? Who is the HR in the church?
And we're going to get to that momentarily. That is a great question, because when these things happen, some people feel very isolated, right? And so, okay, something happened to me. Maybe that person is a leader of the church. I don't know if I feel comfortable talking to leadership. then who do I talk to? Are there confidential resources to handle that situation? So it's a process that we hope to get to, and that's a great question. So to fully understand, we're going to try this video and pray that it works. This is a very technical video, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. HR professional, because this is around work. But it is important because, again, those same things apply to the house of God. Okay?
The law defines sexual harassment as unwelcome verbal, visual, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that is severe or pervasive and affects working conditions or creates a hostile work environment. Conduct of a sexual nature is broken into 3 parts: verbal, visual, and physical. Verbal includes comments about clothing, a person's body, sexual or gender-based jokes or remarks, requesting sexual favors or repeatedly asking a person out, sexual innuendos, threats, spreading rumors about a person's personal or sexual life, or foul and obscene language. Visual includes posters, drawings, pictures, screensavers, cartoons, emails, or text of a sexual nature. Physical includes assault, impeding or blocking movement, inappropriate touching such as kissing, hugging, patting, stroking, or rubbing, sexual gesturing, or even leering or staring. There are 2 categories of sexual harassment. The first is quid pro quo, which literally means this for that. It occurs when a boss uses job rewards such as raises or promotions or punishment such as demotions or firing to force employees into a sexual relationship or sexual act. The second is hostile environment, which is defined as conduct that unreasonably interferes with work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. For example, it may be sexual harassment if repeated sexual comments make someone so uncomfortable that their work performance suffers, or they decline professional opportunities because it will put them in contact with the harasser. In both types of harassment, employees must prove that the conduct was offensive to someone, not necessarily the intended victim of the harassment. Here is an example. Say a male employee tells a dirty joke to a female coworker. She thinks it's funny, but a second woman passing by finds it offensive. That joke could contribute to a hostile environment claim simply because someone finds it offensive. There are 2 conditions that determine liability for employers in cases of hostile environment sexual harassment. The employer knew or should have known about the harassment, and the employer failed to take appropriate corrective action. Having a training program as well as a clear procedure for reporting harassment claims can shield employers from expensive lawsuits. Visit us at turnkeydoc.com for more tips on how to prevent sexual harassment, training materials, as well as a complete library of company policy and procedures. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for free video tips every month.
Batteries are dead. Yep. My batteries are dead. Thank you. Okay. So one of the things that people often ask me is, what's the difference? I was just flirting. It's, they're cute. I'm an eligible person. I can date. We're single. Why not? So I want to talk about that. Flirting typically feels good, right? Sexual harassment doesn't feel so good. I don't like to usually use good and bad, but it's pleasant to flirt with someone if it's both ways. But harassment, again, there's a power differential typically, and it doesn't feel welcoming or good. Flirting is reciprocal, and sexual harassment is unwanted by the receiver. Flirting, non-threatening, and complimentary. Sexual harassment, threatening, and insulting. Flirting builds esteem for both parties. Sexual harassment builds up the ego of the giver while tearing down the esteem of the recipient. And then flirting feels equal to both parties. The harassment gives one person power over the other. Okay? Questions? Now, I wanted to say in the video, that, again, it was very heteronormative and very female as the victim survivor, male as the potential perpetrator. However, we know that it can happen to men as well. Men can be harassed. So I'm going to point out something that's going to be uncomfortable right now. We have called someone Pretty Ricky several times today. That might be uncomfortable for that person. That might be. And although it may be in jest, that might make that person feel like, oh, okay, I don't know. So those are the things that we really need to think deeply about, right? Thoughts? No, we're having a conversation. It's okay. It's okay. Say what you said. It was a good thing. It was a good thing. It's a
Saying
good.
that
Just
pretty for some men might be like, why are you calling me pretty when I want to be called handsome?
that's one. But
To be feminine.
so we're focusing on the quality of, oh, it's different than saying, you look nice today. And I moved on. But I've heard that man be called Pretty Ricky at least 10 times today. 10 times. I mean, I want, let's dive into it. Go ahead.
So in other words, he's got a case he can sue, right?
If he feels it's unwelcome, if it's unwanted, if it makes him feel uncomfortable continually, you can call your husband Pretty Ricky all you want to, okay? That's between you and him, okay?
Hi, and for me, I've been trained in those areas. So when I hear things like that, I'm the person that overhears it, and it offends me because I know it's sexual harassment. And so when you're trained in those areas, you want other people to know that sometimes even saying sweetie or gorgeous or Pretty Ricky, those are top-notch considered sexual harassment.
Right. Thank you. And I wanted to point that out because, again, this is a man. He's a man. He's male identified. Will we be doing that same behavior with a female identified person right now in this training? Something to consider.
So I think that was a really good example. I'm going to say that first. And then I think it's a poor example at the same time. And the reason why I'll say that is because everything has context. So for Pretty Ricky, the person who initiated that statement that's a term of endearment for the two of them. And it's kind of a community thing. Now, Ricky, let me ask you something. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I do think it's a great example, but I think we have to balance it with context.
Correct. So as a visitor who's never heard that, you also have to be mindful of how that comes off to everyone else. This is leadership. Yes. Yes, most definitely. I appreciate that.
There's also a cultural aspect to that, right? Because we, as African Americans, we know where Pretty Ricky comes from. It's sort of a hip hop rap thing. And so folks who are not of color may go, what is that? But we know the playfulness, right? So you're right, context, but
It's
you have
huge.
to know your audience.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I know the joke. Oh, yeah, I know, trust, I know the joke. But as we're sitting in a sexual harassment training, I want to, I'm just using an example that's something, because just like we can get lax on that, what else can we get lax on?
Yeah, that's absolutely.
I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
So we have to think about that.
You're asking a good hear this stuff and you dealing at this job and at the church, and these are folks who come in here, and if they hear something like that, they won't pay that no mind. I'm trying to benefit myself because what you're, I want to say, teaching or showing us for church people like me, myself, I would be sued or fired or whatever because that's who I am. I'm a lovable person. I love to greet people. I love to hug people. I love the fellowship. I love people because that's who my father is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me, come tomorrow, I don't need to be at this church because somebody's going to be in trouble.
No, that's not what I'm telling you. No, no. I still, again, I said when I walked in, I felt greeted. I felt like, oh my gosh, you're welcome here to be whoever, whatever you would like to be. However, when we're thinking about these things and how this can play out in church, and again, you are the hospital.
Sure, but at the same time, this corporate thing that you're showing us, we're the church. Now, yes, we're in leadership here, and the people are coming, like you said, the hospital. Okay, you come, I don't say anything to you, I don't look at you. I'm going to be in trouble regardless. This is what I'm trying to say.
I hear what you're saying.
The church, I'm not coming back to that church. They don't like people.
There's a way to be kind and friendly without physical touch.
So we just have to wait, in other words, till something happens.
Say more.
Okay.
Say more of what you mean.
Okay.
Of something happening. Help me understand.
Okay. It's hard, but it's not hard. Because people are coming, and it's a lot on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say something to somebody, like you say, that it may go over their head because that's who I am. But I do it out of love and not disrespect, and everybody don't hear that. That's me and that person.
Okay.
And they love that. They love that. If they don't, they'll tell me. I'll apologize in a heartbeat because I don't want them to be hurt.
Right. And in the same breath, and I hear it, and I appreciate your love.
I'm trying to separate this
corporate and personal.
Yes, because this is the church, and we're supposed to greet one another with a holy kiss. We are supposed to be nice, so we are to show love, but not to the point where we should be in trouble for it.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
So I want to, thank you for that. So I wanted to come to this. So I just want you to look at the picture and look at her face. Look at her face. Does she look like she feels welcomed? She looks intimidated. She looks like she wants to run away from him. Okay? And so, and in his statement, and I listened to this several times, he said he meant no harm. He was welcoming her. He was trying to appreciate her. But his approach may not have been acceptable. His words, not mine. His approach might not have been acceptable to her. So you have to remember, you have one. You have a body, somebody else has a body. And everybody has a bubble. That doesn't mean that you can just come to somebody. But that's what we've been taught. That doesn't mean that it was right. I started teaching my kids young about consent. And people were like, what? Why are you talking about sex with your children? No, had nothing to do with that. It had to do with their body and boundaries. Another one of my colleagues, she's been on, Hayden doesn't want to hug right now. Her children all the time, they don't want to hug right now. But I want to hug. Sorry, Hayden does. It's his body. He has control of his body. Think about what happens when we teach that to young children. That's powerful. But sometimes in our adult thinking, what they need to be telling me no for, I'm their parent. Because if their bodies isn't feeling safe, they can at least tell you, hey, such and such is doing something that makes me feel uncomfortable. Does that make sense? Somebody has, 2 people have some questions. Yes. 3 people. Yes. Yes. Questions, concerns, thought processes. Maybe prayer requests in a minute.
You know, I just wanted to say, Pastor just got through some training, and she said, look. So you're looking at someone. And so when I look at you, I can feel, when I look at you, I can feel something there.
Right.
And that is your signal light, if you will, to know what you got to do.
Right.
First of all, you've prayed, you know, God, you word my mouth and my actions as
There
you
we
go
go.
through the day.
Yes.
When he looked at her, when she did that, it was time to stop. Okay, I don't care how much you love people, they will let you know where that line is.
Right.
And so when, you know, we just had that lesson about look, it's like, what are you looking at? You're looking at another individual. I mean, you could look at an animal. I mean, you know, I look at a dog and they already know she's scared to death already. So, you know, there's something there. And so that's what you have to pay attention to keep you out of trouble.
Got it. Thank you for that. We had 2 over here.
I was dittoing off of what Michelle had said, because in the professional world, we talk about this thing, and there are limits, because you're taught, like, you even cannot call a person and say sweetheart or dear or whatever, because that is a form of control and manipulation. It controls the person, and you feel, you know, in authority, and they have to look at that. So that's the same thing in any environment. You know, we have to be very careful about the words we use. And sometimes in going with what he was saying, you know, you may mean nothing by it, but still, it is a form of manipulation. And I'm not saying, we as church people, we did come up knowing, you know, that you know, like it's a holy kiss, hug, or whatever, but there are boundaries that we have to respect and appreciate as well.
Right. Thank you.
I ain't say nothing about kissing.
Behind.
Also, in the educational field, after working with special needs, people that cannot verbalize their needs or their wants, you cannot just assume that they want a hug or a kiss or anything like that. And so when we see certain behaviors, you have to address those behaviors. Maybe Johnny don't want a kiss or a hug. Maybe he can't verbalize that. And some people don't feel comfortable letting you know. So you do have to read and you have to be sensitive. Let's be sensitive to who's coming in and the power dynamic that we all have. So if you are a leader, you have to be sensitive. So if someone's coming through the door and I could say, all right, you look nice today. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with their body. And so I have to change my verbiage. Welcome to the church. So I just changed my verbiage, that you feel welcome, you feel invited, but I cannot comment on your body. Because when I focus on what you dress or your hair or your feet, whatever, maybe that's a trigger for you. So I have to be sensitive to that and be aware of that. And that's the purpose of this training, to make us aware of those power dynamics and the sensitivities that people may have.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well said, honey. I mean, ultimately, it's about balance, right? We can be very loving and giving, but at the same time, to my husband's point, we have to be very discerning, right? We have to pray for discernment so that we know the context and the audience that we're dealing with. And it really requires a lot of unselfishness. It's not going to take anything away from you. You're not going to be considered not your authentic self if you don't say you look gorgeous. It will. I'm not saying that. You will be okay.
Yes, you will.
You will be okay. It's
You will.
about what the other person feels,
Yes.
right? And so you got to be really discerning about that and find other ways to express your authenticity,
Yes.
right? That is more common to all folks. You just have to be really careful and know your comfort zone as well, right? Know kind of what makes you feel comfortable. I just, for example, refuse, like when holding hand with men, I don't like to interchange my hands with any man that's not my husband, just because I don't want to make him feel uncomfortable, right? I don't want to feel uncomfortable, and then obviously respect for my husband. So you just have to have boundaries, and me not whole interchanging doesn't keep me from being connected to that person.
Thank you. Thank you. You are all in my recommendations. But thank you.
Very well said, everything that people are saying so far. I just want to share briefly to the point that's being made now about who's made to feel uncomfortable. When I first came here, some people thought I was not a friendly person. You later learn that I'm a very friendly person because I have these boundaries with how I interact with men. So I don't hug you. We not getting close enough to smell each other's perfume and cologne. We're not doing any of that until I feel safe. And if the deacons remember, when y'all sat in the front and I would leave walking out behind Bishop or whatever, I would wave at everybody on my way out. I just did a big wave, hi. Now I stop and I dap and I hug and I do all those because now I understand that these are my brothers. We have that understanding. So to your point, yes, you can grow into, I know you want to be telling everybody everything, but you got to give people some space to feel comfortable with you because over time that comfort level may increase. So that's
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Last one.
And it's a matter of flipping the script. When we grew up in church, and a lot of what we do now is based on how we grew up in the church. In my church, if we had 20 people, we were filled to the max. And you kissed everybody. Everybody that walked in, you gave them a kiss. By the time you got to your seat, your face was just covered with spit and everything. But that's just the way we grew up. That's just the way we grew up. But now we have to flip the script. We didn't have boundaries back then. That was just the expected norm that you hugged and greeted everyone. Maybe not so much with a holy kiss, but it was a kiss. You greeted everyone, but now you have to, now we're dealing with boundaries.
Yes.
And I'm like, Pastor, I'm not getting all this hugging and going on. I greet you with a smile now.
Amen.
I greet you with a smile, let you know you're welcome, love you much, and I move on.
There you go.
Because those are boundaries. You do it in love. You do and say everything in love and move forward.
Amen. All right. All right. So.
That everyone grew up in the same type of church. It is very enlightening today so that we can all come together and grow.
Yes.
There are some people here that grew up in a Catholic denomination or came from various denominations. I came from AME. And so we were very, very reserved. Even though we worshiped, we respected. It was only a handshake, and there was no hugging. And if you wanted to hug someone, you asked, may I hug you? And we were trained that way. So I love that we're in a plethora of backgrounds.
Yes.
And today, we're going to grow.
Yes. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Awesome. Woo. All right. Let's breathe. How you feeling? That was a lot. That was great. But that was a lot. That's challenging. That's what difficult conversations are about. They make you a little warm and like, what do you mean? Pushing against those boundaries that you've had, all the learning that you've had. Very good. So we're going to push a little bit more, and we're going to talk about Tamar. So, in your groups right here, we have, we're going to review and discuss the biblical case study and thoughts. And I want you, it's in your booklet, okay? And someone is going to read in there. It's a short couple of paragraphs, or you can read it to yourself. And then I want to see if you can connect the 5 key norms in this situation. And here's a reminder of the 5 key norms: power, violence, masculinity, femininity, and silence. Okay? So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. You could be right here, just in your areas. Okay? All right? Okay, let's come on back. How was that conversation? Or that thought? Because a lot of people I saw, they were just thinking. Like the little ball spinning on the Mac computers. Thinking. So what were some of the thoughts? I'm sure that you all have talked about Tamar before.
So in our group, it was obvious all the 5 key norms came up, but also we really talked about submission and this culture of silence, right? So which is really powerful in the faith community church, where you report something, as she said, she told someone, and she was told just to hush it up. So we talked a lot about that culture of silence.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. What else?
We talked about the fact that this, of course, occurred in the New Testament. And, I'm sorry, in the Old Testament with Samuel and in the Jewish tradition and the Mosaic Law, et cetera. And the question was, what we see here in this context, power, violence, masculinity, it all plays out. Has it changed in the culture that we're in now? And the answer is no.
No.
Not to the extent that it should, we don't think.
No. Thank you for that. I was wondering, I'm like, did you see a change? I mean, it could be. I'm willing to be wrong. No other thoughts?
Oh. One thing that struck, that it took 2 full years. So I'm wondering, what's happening?
No, we got to pause right
Right?
there. Hold on.
Right?
Y'all didn't catch. 2 years. Okay. I'm just saying.
In a community where people know and are related to one another, and the silence is just so loud. So what's happening? Nothing has been done. Is she still wailing about what happened? Nobody has been held accountable about it. So what is going on in that time? And then how do we reach the point to finally say, okay, we're going to do something about it? That was super tragic, right?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that thought. Thank you for that thought. That's the time that passes. When you think about a victim survivor, right? And in culture, and they're still seeing the people, still interacting, still living life. How'd it work? How does that work?
So what stuck out for me was how the act of retribution was so separate and apart from Tamar. There was no conversation with her, nothing about how you feel, how would you like for us to handle this? And so that goes again back to the power dynamic, the masculinity issue. And if we modernize that about going to the victim, and I know you're probably going there, Ms. April, I'd love for us to talk about when the victim does come to you and where you're having conversations, and their request of you is, don't tell anybody. And I know you're probably going to, because we need to talk about that as we...
You know I'm going there. Yes. Yes.
We actually had to do a little review of the story because there were certain parts of it I didn't remember, but I thought it was also tragic how this perpetrator who claimed initially to love Tamar, at some point, the scripture says he hated her. And it made me think about how we often blame the victims for their crime, for the crime perpetrated against them.
That's good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
And also in the scripture, she said no, so that was, she did not give consent to have this happen to her. But I think that would be like, what, power and balance, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as a woman, your body belongs to me anyway, so what are you talking for? Why are you talking? Let's get it on. What are you talking about?
A couple of the things that we talked about in our group was about how the father mourned for the son that was killed, not for the rape that happened to his daughter.
Pause. Thank you for that. Pause. So, I've been waiting for this when we talked about masculinity versus femininity, because remember I said, is it versus? Because sometimes men are here and women are down here. So the importance of a son and that daughter doesn't have any importance. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
And to further that thought, in the actual story, when she told him no, she said, go to my father, don't do this, he'll let you marry me. Further, her not having a voice in what was going to be done to her.
Yes.
To that, so not only did she lose her voice, but she's a forever victim, meaning she could never be married, she never had a life, and we don't acknowledge that.
Yep. Thank you for that. Thank you. And true of other victims, like sometimes they don't get past this. This is the burden that they carry for the rest of their life. You had something. See? I remember.
Oh, no, I was going to say the same thing that Deacon Reed said, too. Just victimization for females, almost this attitude of, what did she do to deserve it? How was she dressing? How did she invite this sort of behavior? And then instead she looks at herself like, maybe I did, I was wearing something that was a little too short or too tight. And I think that her story sort of just falls off the page. Like, what happened to her? Was there a happy ending, or did she end up, and you kind of feel bad after you read the story, not realizing that so many victims that have experienced that, maybe they just leave the church. They never come back. They never speak about the person who did it because of out of fear. You're not talking about the good Reverend Pastor Bishop. He wouldn't do that. And knowing that there's so many silent victims that are out there that have experienced church hurt, and when it comes up, they tell them, just get over it. So then again, it's a cycle that just continues to repeat itself, that they have had this experience, and now maybe they sit in the back of the church, they tip out when the service is over, they're not as friendly or as welcoming, and you may have a Deacon Gordon that maybe he has a good intentions of, let's welcome you in, but they're like, I've had this experience before, and my story didn't end well, so I'm here looking in to see, is it safe? And they want to find that safety here.
Yeah. That's good. That's give it all to God in prayer and let it go. Just forget about it. But there's actions to heal from that. Don't think about that. You have faith without works is dead. You got to do some work. It's got to be some work.
Another unfortunate aspect of the story is that after the act occurred, it seemed that she was blaming herself as well, because it said she put ashes on her head.
Mm-hmm.
She tore her clothes. She didn't curse Amnon. She kind of blamed herself, so that was very unfortunate.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on. There's a lot. That was great. Do we need a deep breath? Yeah. For me, when I learned about this story, this helped me to understand that what I was doing was right. Teaching and helping people further understand the power dynamics in faith-based communities. And to try to untangle all of this so we can create a safer environment for everyone. Because she did not have one. And again, I will say, just because this is heteronormative does not mean, and female as the victim and male as the survivor, or I'm sorry, and male as the perpetrator does not mean that men cannot be the victims, because they often are. They often are. And never say a word.
We'll flip it. Joseph and Potiphar's wife, if you want to do.
There we go. There we go. Thank you. All right. Whew. Y'all are doing good. Y'all are doing good. Let's keep going. All right. So some common misconceptions about gender violence, and I think these were pulled out a second ago, but I want to read it so we can just hear them all together. She, he. Notice I said she, he. She or he. Again, because this can happen to anyone. She, he, they was asking for it. She, he, they has already had sex with everyone else, so why does it matter? Some people can't control themselves sexually, so they just did that thing. It didn't matter. She, he, they lied. Men can't get sexually harassed or raped. It should be easy to leave an abusive relationship. Now, I keep this one in there, even though this has nothing to do with sexual harassment. I need for you to know that abuse, harassment, all of that, it should be easy for you to just leave your job if you're being harassed at work. What? It should just be easy for you to leave the church. But I'm in leadership. But I love my church. No. Okay. She, he, they didn't mean to rape anyone. It was an accident. Oh, y'all laughing. I hear that all the time. I ain't mean that. They was just, it was an accident. What do you mean? Yeah. No. Thoughts, questions, prayer requests? Okay. So the effects are many. Fear, PTSD, yes. Anger, suicide, interfere with school, work, disrupted relationships, helplessness, shock, disbelief, guilt, self-blame, flashbacks, depression, anxiety, nightmares, insomnia, impaired memories, drug, alcohol abuse. And all of these are the same for male or female survivors. Okay? And the consequences, some of the same. Yeah. How are you feeling? Okay. All right. That was a lot. Okay. Do we need a break? Or should we keep going? All right. All right, let's go. So these are some recommendations, and these recommendations are in your booklet. So the first is for church leaders and officials. So the first thing that I'm recommending is create, implement, publish, and review a policy and protocol for supporting victim survivors, as well as assistance, support, and accountability for the perpetrator. Let me me say that last part. Assistance, support, and accountability for the perpetrator. So a lot of times when I've come into contact with perpetrators, it's, you are now ostracized, get out. And that's it. In this day and age, we are getting better about supporting victim survivors. I think that's great. I think we still need to beef it up. But I also want to recognize that perpetrators need support too. They need further education. They need to learn how to navigate in the community. Not ostrich, get out. Because that kicking out and losing your community can lead to all of those consequences as well. But we don't think about that. Make sense? Yes?
How does the supporting of the perpetrator, how does that look in community?
Their accountability programs, there's perpetrator programs where, again, you are educated, you are learning to unlearn some of the behaviors. Now, whenever I say that, the first example that people typically go to is the serial rapist. That's what they're thinking about, right? That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about, no, we're on harassment right now, right? Someone has had an infraction of harassment. You give them education, training, and you figure out what the accountability is. That's something together that you all have to come up with, and I can help do that and what it looks like. But it's not just excommunicating from that person. Make sense? Okay. Yes. Ooh, we got lots of questions. Love that. Love that.
And I think sometimes that looks similar to people that hold space with them. So, you know, if there is a female identified person that's done that, then other female identified people can work with them in terms of helping them think about what accountability looks like. I had a thought of our upcoming men's conference, right? Our men are getting ready to go and have a retreat. So this topic may not be a part of that, but at some point, is there a space for male-identified folks to talk about that with other men and express that in such a way that if you hear something going on, even in that moment, you try to interrupt it, but you can also come back later and say, hey, you know, I heard you say this, or this is how I moved through that. It helps when we give our own testimony and how we've moved through things, because we always have to think about intent versus impact. It may not be our intention of it, but the impact of it can be far-reaching.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
I have a question. One of the things that a consequence is also could be a lawsuit.
It could be, yes.
So what would you do with the perpetrator that's been named in the lawsuit? How would you handle that situation?
Me as a person?
Not you as a person, us as a church, not you personally.
And again, that's something that the community has to decide, right? You have to decide then if it is appropriate to say, I need for you to step down from this leadership position. I need for you to do something different. You're utilizing your power, again, and we're about to come to it. You're not using your power in a productive way. So you have to make some choices there. There may be one standard, and then you see how you are going to utilize the standard, right? So if there's a lawsuit, that might take things out of your hands. But thank you for that.
I work for the DMV, and so if there's an infraction, let's say you got a speeding ticket, and so, or a DWI, there are certain classes you have to take before you get your license back.
Yes.
So you have to take care of those, go to those classes every night or every day and work toward getting your license back before you are allowed to drive again.
And pay fees.
And fees.
Mm-hmm.
Retribution.
There you go.
Yeah, when I read that top statement, my mind immediately went back to that man box, and at least that part where you start talking about support and accountability for the perpetrator, because it is going to take some assistance and support and accountability as men, for all of us that grew up embracing so much of that man box, to
Yes.
unlearn and begin to change our behavior as it relates, first of all, our thoughts, and then our behavior as it relates to interfacing with our female counterparts.
I appreciate that, yes. Awesome. Okay. The next one. The policy should establish a clear and easy-to-follow process for reporting incidents of sexual harassment to include designated individuals and confidential resources for reporting, as well as instructions for what to do if the alleged harasser is a member of the church staff or leadership. Okay? So this makes power no longer a barrier. Questions? Okay. Train church officials and leaders on policy as well as the protocol and the coordination of implementation yearly. At least. So you create this policy, you're like, oh, okay, it's good. Who knows about it? How do you use it? You got to train people on it. So church leaders, officials, understand your role, position, and power as church officials and leaders. You have power. People look up to you. Respect other people's personal boundaries regardless of age and or gender. If you are not sure, ask first. Would it be okay if I gave you a hug? Thoughts? Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
In our old church, we were taught how to hug females, and I mean, females were taught. Some of us are blessed in different areas, so you don't want to bear hug people because you're coming too close in contact. I mean, even if you did that to Big Mama and people, you know, your aunts and stuff, that's different when it's a female. So it could feel a certain way, and you wouldn't want to put your hands around people's waist because some people maybe have less, some people have more. And it could feel a certain type of way. So you just have to be conscious to know that how would this other person feel, even if your intentions are good. And to show you the hug, this is the hug we did. It was, Pastor Sharon, no. It was this one. And I still do it to this day. Like, if it's a male, they may be like, but I'm to the side. Because it's not, this part of my body is more, like that.
Yeah.
And not as much
Got
an
it.
open hug like that. That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Hugging 101. You might have to make it a class. I'm serious. I'm serious. Yay. Up.
Also, when folks are at the altar and they're rejoicing or dancing, you just can't put your hands on them, especially when you're male, female. And so there are certain ways that you ask for assistance, have females come up and, help those who are dancing. And if you just can't wrap yourself around a female, or I'm a male, I got to be aware of that. I can't place my hands in certain spots, certain places. And so if someone's really rejoicing, usually I take another female and take her hand and put my hand behind them, that hand, to offer support so that person won't get hurt. But there's ways that you got to be aware of things.
Yes.
And how it looks.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Thank you for that. One more. I'm sorry. Give it up for my mic mover. Yes, my mic mover is doing it today.
So I have a question regarding the coordination and implementation yearly for church leaders. Thinking about in corporate America and the other environments that people are in, some of the trainings are required, like mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't do certain things until you pass this, or your boss will get signals. So would you recommend mandatory training for deacons and church leaders as you would do in your job? You can't do this, it's mandatory, it's part of your job description?
Yes, for the protocol and procedure, you have to know if you're showing up and your first day and somebody wants to report, how's that gonna work? So yes, it should be mandatory. For some people that sounds harsh, but it's necessary. You got to.
And I like to say this probably won't be something new for us that have been here for a while, because yearly before we were required in January to retake the leadership classes. Do y'all remember that? So those that have been leaders for a long time, every year in January we were required to retake those leadership classes if you were deacons or ministers. So adding that to it sounds exceptional.
Just a quick comment. If this is the case in the corporate world that they require these things, the church's standards should not be less. Actually, ours should be to strive to ensure that people are trained and understand and know how to recognize and report these things. I just think about that from when I was working in a corporate legal department. Every year it was mandatory, and it was multiple things on ethics and harassment and all those kind of things. So I would believe that the church's standards should be equivalent, if not more, in these areas.
Thank you for that.
And we had to sign off on it.
Yes.
We actually had to sign, the ministers did. We had to sign a contract. Not a contract. What was it, Renee? We had to sign. Do you remember? Okay, but we had to sign.
It's usually a certification saying I have taken this training and understand.
In addition, we had to sign off on other things that had to do with dating, if you were married, a whole statement. I still have mine from each year. So, yeah.
Okay. One more. Someone had something. Yes. You're getting your steps in today.
Some of the youth ministries here are required to do annual tests. For instance, I'm a scout leader.
Yes.
And we have to be certified in youth protection.
Yes.
Several other 2-deep leadership training and so forth. And even in our Thrive, our youth church, we have training programs as well. And I don't want to get into too much of the detail. And in the next steps, I'll just mention one thing. We do have programs set up for those who don't know within the church structure itself.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Awesome. Okay. Keep going. Create a community where consent is normalized and put into practice regardless of age and or gender. Start the conversation concerning these topics with your youth and young adults, consent and asking permission. Healthy relationships, talking about touch, utilizing curriculum concerning dating, safe dates. And then understand harassment is never the fault of the person being harassed. By its nature, harassment is unwanted attention or behavior. It is not consensual. Okay? So, this is for everybody. So, Lordy Jesus, I apologize. Understand your role, position, and power as well as others, okay? Be clear with yourself and others about personal boundaries. Remember, your level of closeness with others may not feel comfortable or appropriate for others. Refuse any inappropriate comments, photos, gestures, or contact. Respect other people's personal boundaries, regardless of age or gender. If you are not sure, ask first. If you see or hear someone being harassed, don't keep silent. Remember, that's the last norm, the silence. Don't keep silent. You can approach the person being harassed to see how you can help. If safe, tell the person doing the harassing that their actions or words are inappropriate and make everyone feel uncomfortable. If needed, call church leader official for help. So there's a whole way we're going to talk about intervening in just a second. If you are experiencing harassment, make it clear that the behavior is unwelcome. You can say no with a look, words, or gesture. If harassment persists and you are in public place, make your protest louder so that the public notices the harasser. Trust your intuition and feeling if someone's behavior makes you feel uncomfortable. People who experience harassment sometimes try to rationalize or deny what's really going on. Maybe they didn't really mean that. If you feel safe, speak with your church officials and leaders for help and support. If not, speak with a confidential resource. Talk about it with people you trust so that the name of the harasser and the kind of objectionable things done are known. This is important so that others are not subjected to the same treatment. Silence may only provoke more harassment. Okay? How are you feeling? You sure? I'm just checking my time. Oh, we're doing good. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. So, upstanding starts with you. So I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell them a time that you did intervene in some way. It could be like you saw something that didn't feel right and you intervened. And then maybe another time that you didn't, and why didn't you? So just turn to your neighbor real quick. We're going to take a minute or two. It could be intervening on anything negative happening. Anything. Okay. So, thank you for sharing with each other. Why when you think about that intervention, when you did intervene, who would like to share why they intervened? Anybody?
My wife said no, I should.
There's one over there. Oh.
Well, the reason why, because it could have escalated. It was on church grounds. And so it was potential danger.
So safety.
Yes.
Yes.
Keeping everyone safe. So, that's why I intervened.
Thank you. Thank you for that. What's a reason for someone not intervening?
Well, I didn't actually have my hand up for not intervening. I was thinking of the time when you did intervene and why did you? I had intervene one time some years ago here at the church with a young man that he was trying to hug my daughter and she did not want the hug. It was uncomfortable to her. And he thought like, well, what? He said, I know your mama, I know her. And I had to tell him, no. If she said she doesn't want to hug you, then you have no right to hug her, so you need to move away and give her personal space. And so I think of that not just for my own daughter, but because we do have that culture of hugging here, think about our young people, where a young lady, she may not necessarily want to be hugged, maybe it's another teen or another person, young adult. Someone has to be able to say, hey, she doesn't look like she want to be hugged, don't hug her. I like the whole asking aspect with the hug, because within our community, there are people that have been wounded in these areas. You don't know who they are, so if you don't know them, ask before forcing a hug. So
young and old, young and old. So this is why didn't you intervene?
I shared mainly because of power dynamics, right? Especially as a black woman, we're talking about also it came up in the church. What would that mean for me? If it's a person in leadership, if you're serving as a leader, what would that mean for you? How will you be treated? And the list goes on. So that was why didn't you? Because of power dynamics.
Thank you. And I heard lots of people, when I was talking about it, say safety in both areas, safety and safety. I did because it was safety for other people and I wanted to make sure they were safe, or I didn't feel safe intervening, so I didn't. Okay? So those are the common fears and the barriers for us to intervene. It might be culture, it might be my job, it might be how will I be looked at as a leader, all of those things. Regardless of that, we're going to talk about being an upstander, actually standing up and doing something about it. And the way that we're going to do is act. I like action. So act. The A, and this is also in your booklet, the A is ask. When you hear someone tell a joke that belittles or sexualizes or uses words that are demeaning, ask, do you know what that word means? Do you know what you're saying? Did you intend to be hurtful? I like the, did you ask them if they wanted a hug? Did you ask? Ask. Put it in the form of a question. So C, choose. Being an upstander is a choice, just like being a bystander is a choice. So a bystander, some people use them interchangeably, but the bystander effect and what they mean is somebody who just watches something happen and says, oh, somebody's going to interact, somebody's going to intervene. Or, my favorite, take out the phone and they record it and just stand behind the camera. But they don't do anything but record it. That's a bystander. An upstander requires action. Okay? Then teach. Teach by example of how you live your life. Upstanding is a verb as well as a noun. I cannot call myself an upstander if others do not witness me as such. So if people know, oh, I need to watch myself around this person, I know they're going to intervene. Oh, I know if they go to brother such and such, they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to chill. I'm going to be good. I'm going to fall back, as the children say. Does that make sense? Questions? Comments? Thoughts? It doesn't take a big action. It doesn't. The first time it might feel like it, though, because sometimes we're uncomfortable. We're not sure. Okay? So I put that in there. So I wanted to also talk about responding to victim survivors. Okay? So if something has happened, somebody comes to you or you see something, there are 3 R's to support: recognize, respond, and refer. Okay? The first one is recognize. First things first. Somebody comes to you and they say something's happened to them, believe them. You don't have to be the police. You don't have to interrogate them. You don't have to do any of that. That's not your job. Just believe them. I believe you. Someone actually reporting something, that's a hard thing. I'll give you a statistic. For every black woman, for every 1 black woman that reports her rape, 15 do not. Okay? So for someone to walk up and say something difficult has happened to them, that takes a lot. So for you to say, well, are you sure that happened? I mean, you know, I know that person, and they're pretty good. They're pretty solid. So you don't have to do an investigation. That's not your job. It's not your job. Okay. All right, I believe you. Second, acknowledge you don't deserve to be treated like that. That's not okay. I appreciate you coming to me and telling me about this. Okay? Respond. Be supportive. How can I support you? Validate. They're going to probably tell you some stuff. What I hear you say is you're unsure what to do next, because a lot of people don't know. They're like, well, this thing happened, and I don't know, and who do I need to talk to? And you're like, okay, you don't know what to do then. I hear you. I hear you. You might be confused, scared. That person has some power, and I don't know, it's the person over the whatever ministry. I hear you. You might be scared. Refer. Maybe express some concern if you're concerned for their safety. I'm concerned for your safety. I hear that you're really nervous and scared, and I'm concerned. Provide some options. There are some confidential resources available to call for help. Okay? That can be whether it's sexual harassment, domestic violence, sexual assault, all of those things. I heard someone who's in ministry here in the audience is connected with Interact in some ways. And that is the domestic violence sexual assault agency here in Raleigh, in the Raleigh area. Great place. Okay? Plan for safety. Do you feel safe talking further to a leader about this situation? Because they might not. They might want to talk to a confidential resource and not a leader, because maybe it is a leader. We don't know. Right? Last one, very important. Respect their choice. They might say, no, I just needed to say it out loud. Maybe I don't want to report any further. It's important for you to make the best decision for you. You may take a note. You may take it to leadership. But in that regard, it wouldn't be a formal report. Go ahead. Uh-oh, we gotta.
So
Clayton and I are sort of sitting here as attorneys, sort of going, ooh. So there's a really fine line, particularly when we are in leadership, and even finer for those who wear what we legally call official hats, right, Maurice? So everybody, and I know Maurice preaches this all the time to the council, but everybody on the council and pastor and even maybe the chair of the trustee department, folks who can legally represent themselves as agents of the church, unfortunately, don't have a lot of leeway when it comes to whether or not you can report.
Correct.
Right? Because there will be exposure for the church if you do not report. And so, for instance, in my role with my employer as general counsel, when people come to me with a claim, I say, oh, it's what you call the upjohn warning. I say,
there you go.
First of all, I represent the credit union. And so you need to know that. So anything that you say to me that may potentially expose the credit union, I have to investigate. Now, oftentimes there's a slippery slope because they start talking, right, and it comes out. And I have to sort of stop them midstream. And that can be difficult because you want to have an open door policy, but at the same time, you have to protect the institution, and it's also for the protection of potential other victims, right?
There we
because
go.
you want to stop that conduct from happening. And so I say, listen, when you tell me, you need to understand, are you filing a claim? Even if they don't say yes, if I hear, oh, that's a potential claim that may expose the church or expose the organization, I say I will try to keep your name anonymous, but you need to understand I have now a duty to investigate.
Right.
Right? And so that goes to your point about not judging. You don't need to make a decision, but you do need to tell, and we as a body need to investigate and let the chips fall where they may. So if you're in a leadership position, particularly the ones I just named, you have a particular fiduciary duty, and you need to let people be aware of that. So with leadership comes accountability and responsibility, guys. So,
And I appreciate you saying all of that. That really goes to the coordination and the policy. Who's actually, so you may have a particular committee, ministry, whatever, that's really handling that. And so that might not be a part of what you can do, right? But if somebody comes to you like, oh, that's on, excuse me, sister, brother, such and such, there's someone who you need to talk to because I can't. Right? But that doesn't mean that they can't come, oh, thank you so much for trusting me, but. So yeah, and that goes along in the protocol and procedure because as you said, there has to be people who are actually doing the investigation as well. Thank you for that. Yes.
And I wanted to say also, from the world of the counselor, I'm not sure if everybody is aware that in the state of North Carolina, if there's suspicion of child sexual abuse or child abuse, we all are mandated reporters.
Yep. Thank you.
So if someone tells you something, if someone says something to you, and it doesn't have to be evidence if there is suspected child abuse, regardless of the kind, sexual or otherwise, you all are mandated reporters in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you for that. Yes.
I think we also need to clarify leadership. When I think about it on my job as a manager, if someone tells me something, I am required to report it, even if they don't want me to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know who we're talking about when we say leadership, as opposed to just putting it under the same umbrella.
What I'm hearing you say is there has to be further conversation, and in the protocols and procedures, along with the policy, all of that should be detailed and understood. Yes.
One thing I want to point out, if everybody looks around the room, what do you not see? A person half our age. So when you mentioned earlier, I believe, if a young person who's 16, 14, 10 come to you, do you believe? I had a situation at church many years ago where I chose not to do anything because I think somebody would believe me. And if a person comes to you and says, they're coming to you in confidence and already scared, but they're coming to you hoping that you'll do something, not judge them because they're young.
I agree. Also, to add to the child abuse, elder abuse as well, over the age of 65. Just saying. Okay. I knew I was waiting for somebody to make a joke. I really was. But okay. All right. What can you do specifically? Continue to get educated and training. This is amazing. I commend you. Give yourselves a round of applause. I commend you on talking about this difficult topic. Yes. Talk to church members, friends, co-workers, and/or partners about these events or this topic. Keep the conversation going. I heard about men's conference and things like that. Designate space to have these difficult conversations together and in different with men, with kids, with women. Continue, okay? Consider your body language and your body language and language. They may seem overpowering, right? So if I'm just standing over somebody who's sitting, that might seem very intimidating, right? Or if I'm a taller person, I'm just really close and leering over them, that might seem intimidating. So just think about how you may be moving in this world. Understand your own position and power, right? Power, we've talked a lot about today. And put what you have learned into practice, okay? No one is expected to do everything, but everyone is expected to do something, okay? Questions? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes in church, like we do hugs, I think sometimes that people who come to church are novice, like we put them in positions. We don't do like a corporation. I wouldn't put somebody in the corporation and say, oh yeah, you go ahead and do that. I see the gift. We as a ministry and body of Christ, we are so quick to put people in positions. And we're like, where did they come from? And then all of a sudden they're gone. We are quick to do that because we see the gift, but we don't know the person.
Right. Yeah. Something to think about.
Yes, I have a question about the issue of safety.
Okay.
When does safety become paramount in this situation? Because information and things go on, and having worked on the offender side for many years, this process is long and drawn out. It's a grooming process. And the question becomes, who should actually have the responsibility for communicating any activity that may resemble grooming? And just simply know all of this information is good, but it could actually lead to an unsafe church environment, depending on the status or depending on the well-being of the other people involved, like parents or folks who are maybe unstable. So, yeah, can you speak to that issue?
So what I hear you saying is, when is it time to step in when someone may be with a youth, young adult, it looks like grooming behavior, whether it's parents, whether it's a leader, any of those things? When you see it, period. You can step in and you can, are you safe? How are things going on at home? Tell me a little bit about it. Just checking in with you. Or you might go to, whether this is something that you all are going to create, you might go to the committee and say, I'm concerned about family X and child Y, and what I've seen is this. Now, this is just what I'm concerned about. I don't have anything, but can we just check in with them? That's it. You're not, again, you can't do this. She can't do this. It's not a formal report of anything, but if you are concerned about something that you see might go from here to there, Yeah, you don't know. And we talked a little bit about communities that are huggy, kissy all the time. A lot of people, when they come to church, they in, they out. They're very private. Some of us do know, some of us don't. So if you see things that seem a little off, and somebody's rubbing somebody, and that's their child, red flag. Huh, that's curious. That's interesting. I need to make a note. Yeah, because again, what we're trying to do is create safety for everyone. So yeah, that was a great question. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
No.
I noticed that in your booklet here,
Yes, ma'am.
that you had it highlighted, if you feel safe, speak to your church officials.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, must have been something you really wanted us to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel safe.
So
Now, church
again,
officials.
how do you create a safe environment? How do you create a welcoming environment that is also safe for everyone? And the reason why I did that is because of the name. We were talking about safe haven for everyone. Oh, I really want you all to be thinking about what that looks like. That's not a question that I can answer. That's something that has to be created.
So I'm really not trying to scare anybody, but this may go to your question, Karen, and your point, Mother. Creating a safe environment is up to us as leaders. And so while there is a legal demarcation that I just described with official hats, that really doesn't matter to certain wily plaintiffs' attorneys, right? They will find a way to make a connection between you, Deborah, and the church and your agency, right? They'll call witnesses and say, isn't it true that she led this? They'll find some way. And so my point is, right, Karen, is that all of us as leaders should take on that responsibility. Right? Even if you're not the chair of something, the deacon board, or the chair of the council, we're in leadership positions. And so we should be very mindful of creating a safe space for everyone and being ready and willing to step up and call things out. We cannot close blind eyes. That's everyone in leadership. And that's not to scare anybody, but that is just the truth of it.
And I appreciate that. And part of that, creating a safe environment, is talking about these issues when it's not so popular to talk about them. Is there a time when you talk about or teach about something around sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, all of these things, or the key norms or power, control, violence, and how that can play out in some of these things? How do you incorporate it, interweave it in the fabric of your institution? Yeah.
And I think what I'm getting and amplifying what you're saying is there's a professor on my campus that talks about, I was telling Brother King about it, not being a bathroom ally. So have you ever been in meetings before and someone says something and you're sitting there thinking like, I really agree with that, but I don't want to say anything about it. Nobody says anything, and then later on at the water cooler or the bathroom, you come up to them, what you said, I really agree with it, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking if you were the one that said it, well, why didn't you speak up then? Right. And it is really trying to see our liberation tied in everybody here, whether that has happened to you, whether you engage in problematic behavior, whether you're unlearning it, whether you were reared in a household where all of everything you had on the left was how you lived and who you are. We have to see our connection to everybody that comes in the door, everybody that's already here, and how we may either aid in something happening or preventing it. And so all of the steps before they get the inclination and the safety to come to us. Because all of us can name either someone here and other places that you felt uncomfortable around, that you've not said anything. We as women, no, don't go over there and talk to him. Don't do that. Because you know, right? And so how do we take what we know from the bathroom and the water cooler and put it into our daily practice as believers? And not being afraid to do that. If we get something wrong, I can apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I was thinking that you alluded to this or that. I'd rather be wrong in my potential assumption than finding out something has happened later that possibly I could have done something to prevent.
I really appreciate that, because that is what we're trying to do, prevent. We talked all about response, which is great, but we really want to prevent it from happening to begin with. Yes.
So, Sister April, thank you for this training today. This has been phenomenal. And I have this provocative question in my head that I'm wrestling with.
Okay.
And perhaps you've seen this someplace else and it's been addressed and you can help me figure it out. So I'm wrestling with the idea, what is Wake Chapel Church's haven? So if something happens here on this property here, that we as leaders, I think we have a duty to intervene and not be a passive perpetrator. So that seems pretty clear. If we have an off-church activity, go to a restaurant, take kids to Carowinds or something, seems pretty clear. We have a duty to intervene. But what if I happen to see a disciple at the mall or at the park? It's not a church activity, it's a Super Bowl party. Do I have a duty to intervene then on behalf of the church? We're leaders here. And the disciple might look at us and say, well, I expected Deacon Smith to come to my rescue. So any thoughts about how far the safe haven should extend?
I mean, are they a part of the body of the church? If they're a part of the body. Now, that's what I would say. That's me. I remember back in my youth, I'll use this. I don't care if I was in the community and it was my mama's friend's sister, and I did something that was not okay. She said, what you doing? If you don't get your tail, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then my mama would hear about it before I even got home. So if we are truly caring for the church community, we are truly caring for the church community. That's my thought. Now, you may say, nope, I'm out. I'm not doing that. That's something that y'all have to decide. Yes?
I think still taking this back to the workplace and the example that Deacon Maurice gave, we were told even if it's an after-hours event where you've gone out to dinner, you still have a duty to report. The other thing I wanted to mention too is you had talked about that hostile work environment, so there could also be a hostile church environment. So one of the things that happened to me years ago, this is early 90s on the job, I was in a pod with 4 people. Well, 2 of those people traded sexual jokes all the time. So that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we also have to think about the people in the vicinity. It might not be directed to them, but they could also be uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, you could have launched a sexual harassment case right there. It doesn't have to be directed towards you. You were there. Any other questions? Concerns? Thank you all so very much for your time and attention. I really appreciate the invitation and to be able to do this for you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.